WHOOBAZOO, that's Whoobazoo.com.
We have Hailie Deegan in with us, Toyota development driver who drives for Bill McNally Racing in the K&N series and also runs some ARCA races with Venturini Racing. How are you, Hailie?
I'm doing great. Just hanging out, racing, all good.
Yeah, we're very pleased to have you on the show here. So before we get started, just so our viewers can know a little bit about you, I'd just like to talk about your background a little bit. I mean, you come from a racing family. Your dad is well known among folks that enjoy off-road racing and the X Games, and I believe you started with off-road racing as well, and now you've transitioned to asphalt. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about your early career and how that transition to asphalt is going.
Yeah, so I got my start in racing when I was 8 years old in off-road trucks. I raced that till I was about 15, 16 full-time. I won 2 championships there, tons of races, and I ended up making a transition into stock car racing just because it's a bigger career, bigger future I could have here. And it's been going great. In our first season of K&N, I won a race, got a couple poles, started out this season. I ended up winning a race and getting another pole, so it's been good.
And like you said, you started off on off-road racing. Have you ever had a chance to compete against your father?
I really haven't. No.
And would you like to do that one day, whether it's in a trophy truck or maybe, say, the Eldora truck race or one of the K&N dirt races?
Yeah, I feel like if we put my dad in an Eldora truck, it'd almost be unfair just because those trucks handle like stock cars, and he's an off-road racer. So I'd say, if anything, maybe racing against him in like a Pro 2 or something in the Lucas Oil Series.
And how was your transition from dirt into NASCAR? Was it easy? Was it difficult?
It was, I feel like, easier than transitioning from pavement to dirt. Transitioning from dirt to pavement, I feel like, helps you. It'd be really hard to go the opposite way. But in the end, I think it's gone really well. It took a little time to kind of get in the gist of things. But now that I'm there, it's perfect.
Now, you made your stock car debut in the Cars Tour, if I remember correctly, at Tri-County Speedway, one of the more difficult racetracks, and then at Hickory Motor Speedway. What are some of the more difficult tracks that you've come across so far in asphalt racing?
I'd say New Hampshire is the hardest track for me. I don't know why. I figured out that I'm really good at short, flat tracks and banked, high-speed tracks. Flat, long tracks, not my strong suit.
And so, are you looking forward then to Pocono on the ARCA schedule for you a little later this year?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest, I'd say, flat, big track I've been on is New Hampshire, which I think Pocono, once you get to the super speedways, it's a little different. But honestly, I don't know what to expect. I'll let you know after.
Now, you mentioned that you got a couple wins, a number of poles. You broke the glass ceiling, essentially, in the K&N Pro West Series. I know you want to be considered the best racer, not the best woman racer, but have you ever found yourself comparing your path to, say, Janet Guthrie or Shauna Robinson?
I mean, Danica, she didn't really even race in the K&N series, so it's like hard to compare to. If she did, it was just a couple races. It wasn't like she came up in the grassroots of stock car racing. She was a go-karter and an IndyCar racer, just a different path. And I think that it's hard to compare someone to like what you haven't done yet. So I think there's a lot of things that like I could compare to other drivers and stuff. But I think as of now, it's just figuring out what works for me and how hard I can push myself to succeed at this point.
So what do you expect to be your biggest challenge as you transition from the K&N Pro to ARCA competition?
I'd say just the level of experience those other guys have on the super speedways. I feel like I'll be just fine like on the shorter track, but as soon as you get to the super speedways, I've never driven on like super speedway type track, so it's going to be a learning curve for me, but I don't know how it's going to go yet. I think that it's definitely going to be a difficult one, but I'm going to have good teammates that are surrounded around me to learn from.
And speaking of teammates and this and that, you have a number of younger teammates, Derek Krause, Brittany Zamora, and then in the ARCA series as well, you'll have younger teammates. What do you think of the youth movement that's been going across motorsports, whether it's NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One? There's a lot of youth in racing nowadays.
Yeah, I think the whole NASCAR and even all of our sports have been in a little bit of like a funk of like not of waiting for the younger generation to come in and that older generation, just kind of like a midpoint. And I think in this, I say about this year to last year, has really been the turning point of the younger kids coming up and kind of showing their faces in the higher series. And there's a lot of really good kids that race and that have moved into Xfinity and Truck Series.
I'm curious to know because in the Truck Series, you have Hailie Deegan, who recently was out in Spain testing for the W Series. What are your thoughts on that series? There's been a lot of people, even on our show, we've had Pippa Man, who is against the series, and we've had Hailie Deegan, who participated in the series. What are your thoughts on it?
I think that every person has an opportunity to be successful in whatever series they're in. And I think there is a reason why girls haven't been successful, or there hasn't been many to be successful in stock car racing. It just takes, I feel like, a different breed of a person and aggressiveness. And I think that any girl can go race in any series if they have the funding and ability to. And I think that it's definitely tough to race against all the guys, but I would say I'm not an open wheel racer, so I don't know. I'm a stock car / off-road truck racer, so it's not really my suit, and that's not the path I'd be going towards.
Completely understand that. And speaking of the fact that you're a off-road truck and a NASCAR racer, earlier this year you ran a dirt midget, if I remember correctly. How did that go?
I practiced in one, just practice,
okay.
Not race. Yeah, just for seat time before the dirt race, which definitely helped before we won that race.
And looking, granted, this might be years down the road, but I know you want to focus on NASCAR. Do you plan on just running, maybe when you get to the Cup Series, just sticking with Cup, or running a bit of everything like, say, Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick do?
I really like those guys that go down and race super late models and go, I think, do stuff like that. And I think it's something that I will always go back and race off-road trucks and do that for fun just because it's where I came from. It's like having Kyle Larson or Ricky Stenhouse go run sprint cars. And I think, and Christopher Bell. And I think it's something that where you came from in racing is where you feel comfortable and like at home. And I think I'll always keep doing that no matter what.
Who have you gone to for advice for, say, a track like New Hampshire where you said you struggled, or even tracks that you've run fairly well at?
I'd say there's quite a few younger drivers that I go to that race trucks in Xfinity that help me out. Quite a few of my friends. I'd say it's just going to people who have experience at those tracks and have been not even just successful, just know the tracks. And I think it's something that's just the toughest part is getting around when you've never done something. So just, I'd say having simulator time, just getting as much seat time as you can.
Now, I'm curious if you've set yourself a timeline to like make it to your ultimate goal, which I imagine is to get into the Cup Series. So you're running ARCA this year, which is a good step up from the K&N, and you're running both those concurrently. So have you set yourself a timeline? And I know you're aligned with the Toyota folks who can certainly help you career-wise.
Yeah, I think that as of now, I for sure don't want to skip any levels. Like I don't want to go straight from ARCA to Xfinity or something like that. And I think that I don't think as of now, like I'm fully ready to go full-time truck racing. I still think I have a lot to learn in like the ARCA series and K&N series before I make that transition. And I'd say when I do go to the truck series, I want to spend the longer time I spend in the lower series, the better I'm going to be in the higher series. So I want to spend at least 2 years in the truck series before I move to like an Xfinity type thing.
So it sounds almost like you're on a 5-year plan, give or take, similar to what Christopher Bell has been doing.
Exactly.
Is there a specific track that you're most looking forward to competing at as you move up the ranks?
I'm excited for Pocono, but the track that I really like is considered, I think, one of the more shorter NASCAR tracks is Iowa. Iowa is like one of my favorite tracks.
And you will be running Iowa later this year in the K&N combination race, correct?
Yes.
So Hailie, who did you have for racing heroes growing up? I know obviously your dad, right? He's a big star of the X Games, but I mean, who did you kind of really pay attention to and watch? Who did you root for when you were very young watching racing?
Oh man, I was constantly at the racetrack, so like it's hard for me to kind of like sit at a TV for hours and watch races, but I'm always keeping like up to date, like always watching. And growing up, I didn't sit there for like 5 hours and watch a cup race every single weekend just because I was always racing. And so it's hard for me to like do those type things while you're at the track. And so now I obviously pay attention a lot more and watch pretty much every single race. But I'd say for people that I rooted for, I'd say I'm not like a big like have certain drivers, but I'd say right now like one of my favorite drivers is Kyle Larson. I really like his driving style, and the whole generation. There's a new generation of racers coming up that have strong abilities. But back then I didn't really have anybody.
Is there a specific series that you actually do watch the entire race for today, or do you just watch?
The Truck Series I watch from start till end.
Now you're transitioning towards, or you're shooting towards a goal in NASCAR in the upper series, and that the whole series is in a little bit of flux with transition. We're doing different qualifying things, and they're shaking up the schedule, and they're looking to shake up the schedule again after 2020 into 2021. So, by the time you arrive there, I mean, what changes would you like to see for the good to be there in place when you finally arrive in the Cup Series?
I would say I don't know about the whole series just because a lot could change by the time I get there, and there's a lot of potential for the series to change with how sponsors are title sponsors. I know that has a big part in it, which I don't know. Honestly, I'm a racer. I'm there for good battles and good racing, and so that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
Just curious, speaking of changes, if they were to say add in a dirt race to either the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series, would you be all in favor for that?
I'd be 100% in favor of that. Just because I know it'd help me.
Hailie, we wish you well in your upcoming season. I would like to give you a few moments just to go ahead and plug your sponsors and plug your teams. Let us know where we can see you racing. Let us know where we can find you on social media for our listeners.
Yeah, so I usually am on Instagram and Twitter just at Hailie Deegan, but I have all like my merchandise and stuff at shopdeegan38.com, which is like our family merchandise site. All my merch is on there, and that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. I know you have a busy schedule, and we really appreciate you taking out some time for us. So we wish you well in the future, and then hopefully after you win a few more races, we'll get you back on the show here later in the season to talk about you battling for the championship. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tia.
All right. Bye now.
Who?